Hey guys, it's Jaquan back again to do the recap for uh, reasons why we fast. And remember, we started the posture of fasting series just last week. I'm really loving this series because I'm being stretched in a manner, in a way, and being taught in a manner, a way that I did not have this knowledge prior to 2019. So, without further ado, I think there's a lot of people will have different reasons for why they fast. In Isaiah 58, which is where the text that I'm coming from, God essentially is dealing with their reason behind fasting. Um, you know, Many of us would agree with this statement that it's not always the fact that you're doing something, but more importantly, why you're doing it. Okay. So when we look at the reasons why it would have appeared that the children of Israel were fasting in Isaiah 58, there was about four reasons that stood out to me. And in verse 2 of Isaiah 58, one of the reasons was that they were fasting to get to know God's ways. Okay. I think that's a lovely reason to fast because, as we talked about before, we want to be open to relationship with God, and that's what fasting does. And I think, you know, how do you say you want to be close to someone or get to know their ways, but you don't know? How can you say that you want to be open to a relationship, but you don't know a person? So it takes you to get to put yourself in a position to want to know them, to be able to say, you know what, I need to know your ways, because in me knowing your ways, and that helps me to know you. Anybody who's ever been in any type of relationship, you realize that once you've made a decision that you're open to getting to know that person, or to being in a relationship with them, one of the most important things is to get to know their ways, how they function, and essentially why they function in a particular way. I think sometimes it's fine to accept people for the way that they are, but I do think it's good, and I think it helps you to be a better friend when you know why they are the way they are. I didn't say you need to try to change people. It's not at all what I'm saying, but I do believe that when you know why a person is the way that they are, it helps you to be a better friend to them. Okay. Another reason that I had that I felt really stood out was fasting. And I know I fast for this, for my voice to be heard on high. And we found that in verse 2. Okay. In any relationship, when you're open to it, you want to be heard. Just like the other person wants to be heard, you want to be heard as well. And, essentially that's communication. One of the things that goes hand in hand with fasting is prayer. Okay. Jesus said that when he talked about demons leaving and having power over the demons, was because he said this power only comes by prayer and by fasting. Okay, fasting and prayer. So I don't think you can fast effectively without praying. And essentially, we see that here because it says in verse 4, you know, about fasting so that your voice could be heard on high. I definitely want my voice to be heard on high, particularly when I'm fasting, because, which leads to my next thing, for this very reason here, because sometimes I need God to answer me. I need his decision or his answers, his just decision and answers on things that I have, that I've brought to him in prayer. So that's the next reason. Reason number 3. We fast for God's answers or his decisions. That was found in verses 2 as well. I think that was kind of in the middle of it. Verses 2 was pretty long. Verse 2 was pretty long. And again, you fast for your voice to be heard on high, but what do you want to be heard? Well, I want the things that I've brought to God in prayer. I want his decision on these things. Not only do I want him to hear me, but I want him to make a decision on particular things that I have brought before him. So those are, excuse me, those are a few reasons there of why the Israelites fasted. But then the Bible says, and this is toward the end of verses 2, another reason was for them to be near God. Okay, to be near God suggests to me intimacy, and I really believe that, again, the Bible says those who worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. If you had to break that down, I think those who worship Him must really be there to worship Him, but must desire to be intimate with Him, because that's I believe when God sees that we desire to be intimate with Him, then He desires to be intimate with us. I'm sorry, God first desires to be intimate. The Bible says that we love Him because He first loved us. So I believe in order for us to be intimate with God, okay, He already has the desire to want to be intimate with us. But I believe fasting allows us to be intimate with Him when we really have a desire to be so. And to be near God helps us to know His ways. It helps our voice to be heard on high. And lastly, I believe that, when we are near God, then that allows us to be able to get those answers that we need in life. I don't know about you, but I have daily answers or daily things I go to God for, because I just don't trust myself with these questions that I have. I don't trust my ability. There was a particular point in time. There were 2 points in times that I remember in my life that really stood out to me. And the first one was the decision on a wife. I made a stance in college that I was not going to make that decision on my own. Okay. So I was very strong in that. It was the same thing for the second time when I decided to get married. And I do believe this, that things don't, even when things don't end the way, or they don't turn out the way we think they should, sometimes that is still God. Okay, so and just looking at that again, we have those 4 reasons as to why we fast. Again, we're just rounding up. We have fasting to know God's ways. We also had fasting to have our voice to be heard on high. We also fast for God's just decisions or just answers. And lastly, we fast to be near God. Give me some reasons that they're outside of this of why you fast. I'd love to know why you fast in particular. God bless.